Today we're at Planet Wash Laundry in Hollywood, Florida to meet with their owner Gus. This corporate engineer who made the transition to the laundromat business.
He asked me, hey, would you be interested in participating in a laundromat? The opportunity opened up. It was sort of like a no-brainer for us to jump to the pool.
Taking this location when it was flatlining to now doing 3 times the revenue and 7 times the profit.
Increase easily, between 6 and 8x. I'm a professional nerd.
Let's find out all the secrets to success. All right, Gus, we got to start with how long have you been in the business? What got you into the industry in the first place? What's a little bit of the backstory here?
I don't think that nobody grows up and says, 20 years old, I want to be a laundry owner, right, when I grow up. I'm an engineer. I work for corporate America. I still work on corporate America on part-time basis, but worked for 20 years in the tech industry, in wireless communications. A family member was looking to get out of a franchise automotive business. So he asked me, hey, would you be interested in participating in a laundromat? And that was a very foreign concept to me.
Right. Was that on your radar at that point?
No, it was not part of the plan. I'm always very, very curious. Look at the industry, look at the opportunities, look at the numbers. And I say, why not? And that was in 2014.
Okay, so 2014, and then how many stores do you have now, and what was that progression like?
So we only have 2 stores.
Okay.
They are large. The first store is 4,000 square feet. This store in Hollywood is 6,000 square feet. We really focus on getting the right store, the right size, the right recipe, rather than a large number of smaller stores. It took a long time to get the second store because this market is very competitive as far as there is a constant demand for stores. This particular store was a distressed sale, it was an opportunity. And when the opportunity opened up, it was sort of like a no-brainer for us, and we jumped to the pool.
You mentioned that this one was a distressed opportunity. Yes. So could you describe that a little bit further? What were you looking at then, and what are we looking at now?
2018, we're driving by, we see the store, we stop, we met the owner, super nice guy. This store was retooled in 2016.
Okay.
All new equipment, it was a dream store. And my wife said, I want this store. I said, I want it too.
What were some of the things that you did when you took the store over from the 87-year-old mother of the former owner to try to turn it around and bring it to a new level?
First thing, within the first 24 hours, pretty much we let go of everyone.
Okay.
Except one. We clean up very quickly, change personnel. We put a lot of emphasis on hiring, on the attendants that we hire, the way we train them. That's really one of our differentiators, right? The customer service. And then we started really, again, I'm coming from the technology world, and to implement every place I see to put technology. And that comes from payment systems, POS systems, new camera systems. Pretty much all our equipment have the ability to be reset remotely from my cell phone.
Right. That probably wasn't being taken advantage of under prior ownership.
Yeah, I'm a professional nerd, so
okay. We like laundry nerds. That's good.
Sometimes that helps.
What were you really looking for, and what are you looking for as a laundromat entrepreneur? What are some of the things that you're trying to get accomplished?
I really look at every problem, I look like a chess game, right? As an opportunity to solve a problem. I get a kick, if you will, of fixing problems. And one of the things that you're gonna see as an entrepreneur, different than the corporate world, that in the corporate world, if you look at the cause and effect, timing, you might take action on a certain product, and it takes a certain time for that financial recognition to come to you, especially if you're in large corporation, right? It's a different world. When you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea, you think about it, you implement, and you can see results, within a week. It self-feeds. It creates a thirst for more of it.
Well, so many laundromat owners do come from that corporate background, and it is part of this entrepreneur transition. And I find that you like to have that hands-on control, and you want to be able to see the outcomes of the work that you put into it and that problem solving, where you may not see that in that other environment. You mentioned having 2 large stores is the way you got started, but is there a 3rd store, a 4th store down the road for you?
If the right opportunity shows up, maybe. Currently we're focusing on getting all the outcome possible from this store. It has a lot more potential. It has grown tremendously since we bought it. It still has a lot more opportunities. We have an area in the back I think it's great for customers. I think it's underutilized on the things that are possible. Yeah, really looking forward to get as much as possible from the investment we made.
Yeah, optimize the existing
There is a lot of
stores.
opportunities.
Can we talk a little bit more about that in 2021 versus where it is today? You said you've been able to increase the revenue and the profitability. Can you give us some sense of scale on that?
So,
because I think that's a lot of positions our first timers are going to be in, where they're taking something from here, and what is the potential to grow it?
As multipliers, revenue since we bought it almost triple, like 2.5x.
Almost triple the revenue.
2.5x. And if you look at income, given that it was run really poorly, given the distress situation, increased easily like between 6 and 8x.
Increase the top line revenue by 3 times and the net profitability by 6 or 7 times. Was this your first entrepreneurial endeavor coming out of that corporate space? Just happened to be a laundromat?
So this happened actually at the same time. So he was doing both things. And in the first store, I have a partner who is my father-in-law, so that, and also my wife. So prior to that, we got into the residential rental business.
Okay.
I look at laundromats as a business, not as an investment. This is a business. If you want to grow it, you need to put your effort. You got to manage the time. I always say that you put as much time as you want, and really is aligned with what goals are you targeting. Some owners that are happy with having a constant, let's say, the store as it is, and they put little time on it. Some of them put a lot of time. So it's really, that's one of the beauties of this industry. If you set up the right processes, you can regulate how much time you spend growing the business and making this better.
You mentioned apartment rentals, residential rentals. That's one of the common crossovers we see with our members. You hear car wash, self-storage, those other types of businesses. So how did laundromats sort of come out on top for you?
I have to give full credit to my father-in-law. And he really looked at the different industries, and he thought that laundromats were a good fit in terms of the possibilities of revenues that you can generate versus the amount of involvement that you need to do with the knowledge that you need to put in.
There's a simplicity to this business. It's execution that can be hard, right? So you need to be in the right location, keep it clean, keep the machines running, have friendly service. But you look around, there's other stores that aren't executing on those core principles. So simple is one thing, but executing it is a harder thing.
I love analogies. My analogy, this is like an old car, right? Which is very simple, but it has 20,000 simple things, and all of them need to be right for the car to run right. All you need is one simple thing, not to be right. Your electric power, your drains, employees not showing up. Suddenly, that simplicity can kill you. So it's really keeping an eye on all that multiplicity of simplicities, I think, is the trick of running a smooth operation.
All right, let's take a closer look at Planet Wash Laundry. So show us around, Gus.
Let's go.
So it looks like we're into the couple of rows of washers here. So give us the equipment mix, the layout here. What are we looking at?
Sure, so here we have 20 pounds machines. We have our 18 pounds machines. These are heavily used in the weekends. Mainly you're gonna see the fight in the 80 pounders because we only have 2 of them, and that's something that we're looking at expand.
Okay, so you've got some of the smaller machines for people with smaller loads, singles, people that may not have as much laundry, but we know that the most popular are the big machines. So we've got some more 20-pound machines over on this side.
Yeah, these are more different brand, same family, pretty much identical to what we have on the other side. This is really to have the capacity we need for the Sundays. We want to make sure that we support peak capacity, and we keep track of all the usage with our card payment system.
Yeah, and it is a rush hour business, right? A lot of people don't understand that most of the business is coming during those peak periods over the weekend. And so, we're here on a Tuesday, and so you got some customers in here, but as we walk around, it's not jammed full of people. But that doesn't mean it's not a great store, because we come back on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be packed full.
This store, the demographic is more working families. So you're going to see this store after 6 p.m. is when it starts to get really crazy, between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m.
All right, well, let's continue the tour. We looked at some of the smaller washers. Let's take a look back at some of the dryers, and we can work our way across to the other side. So it looks like we've got a row of these 30-pound or 45-pound stacks.
These are 30 pounds.
Okay, so stack dryer is where we've got 2 pockets in the single machine, in this case, each with a 30-pound capacity. And they all work independent of each other, but again, during busy times, these will all be working. As we head over this way, we've got some of those larger machines we were talking about.
So here we have more 30-pounders, but here we have the 45-pounders.
All right, so 45-pound capacity for the larger loads, and it matches up with the fact that you've got 40-pound washers here
As well.
that kind of line up with the 45-pound dryers. So you want to have some of that equal capacity.
We find that the flow in this store works really well. If you look at the layout of washers, dryers, folding tables, and we have plenty of sitting space. This is a store that these families can come, do the laundry, not be cramped, have the space, enjoy the amenities, come back home.
All right, Gus, speaking of amenities, let's take a look at your laundry lounge back here. You got a lot of cool stuff to make laundry day a little bit more fun for your customers. So this is a really, I got to say, this is a really unique space. So show us around a little bit what we've got back here.
This space is really big. You know, when I talk about the opportunities for the future, this is an area where you look at the amount of real estate space available. It's pretty big. Today we use it so that families can relax, they can have a snack, they can enjoy games. We're the only laundromat with a pinball. I'm sorry, I had to have a pinball machine.
Well, I understand. I think you're right. I think this is unique. Maybe the only laundromat pinball machine I've ever seen. All right, so we got a good look here at the amenities, but I really want to go see those 80-pound washers and the rest of the equipment. So let's go take a look.
Let's go.
We've got some more of the 40-pound washers, and here are the 60-pound washers. And I've always viewed this as 6 loads. So 10 pounds makes a load.
That's
so
right.
40-pounder is a 4-load machine, 60-pounder is a 6-load machine. Does that sound right to you?
That's right.
And so stepping up, now we got the real big boys over here. So here are 8-load or 80-pound machines, and as you said, on Sundays, I bet you got people lined up and fighting to get access to the largest machines.
Yes, we have 2 80-pounders, and if you look at the usage, it's really, we're short. We really need to have more capacity, and we're looking at potentially expanding capacity.
No one likes to be told how to do the wash. Sometimes we need to help our customers through education, and like Gus said, they tend to overload dryers, underload washers, and really, the more full loads you have on these machines, they actually operate better and get a better end wash for them, and it's the most economical way for them to do that. And this might be a good time to talk about turns per day. Turns per day is a common industry terminology that really refers to how many times a customer is activating each machine each day on an average basis. And are you like most stores where maybe turns per day might be a little bit lower on the smaller machines, but maybe the highest turns per day would be on the 80-pound machines? How do your customers use the store from a turns per day standpoint?
It really matches what I just mentioned on the flow. In this store, these are the 30-pounders.
30
the
pounders.
most accessible. So if you look at turns per day, the highest are the 80s and the 30s. And they just happen to be the ones that you see first.
Ah, okay.
Those machines,
They're harder to find.
they're harder to find, have the lower usage.
Okay.
Have the lower usage. Something to really keep in mind if you're going to do a layout, from scratch, you gotta be really mindful, on the location of these different machine mix versus the flow of customers in the store.
In terms of your managing the business, knowing the numbers, is turns per day something that you look at and track on a regular basis? Do you have certain target points, or are you using that information to help you manage the
I
business?
don't track turns per day on the daily basis. I might track it a couple of times a month.
Okay.
And just to see trends, just to see if the usage remains the same or if there is a shift. And we use turns per day for a couple of things. One, to set prices.
Okay.
When we have cases where machines, the turns per day is running pretty high, well, then we try to price it up and try to drive customers to the other machines that are not utilized as much. Turns per day is a good indicator on how do you want to price your machines to rebalance the usage of the machines in the store.
Right. Well, it's just like being like in a retail store. You know what's selling. It gives you a sense of what's selling, and you can set your pricing, and then you can set, in the future, you can determine where the customer preferences will lie going forward.
Absolutely.
Again, going back to kind of your origin story here, 2021 through the present, you're continuing to see weekly sales grow over that period of time.
Yes, and we used to have a card payment system that was self-standing, not connected to the internet, so you couldn't really get metrics. With the system we have now, it gives you real-time information of what's going on in the store, usage, machines out of service, revenue per machine. Obviously, again, the machines that are most accessible to the customer, you're going to see them that are producing the highest revenue.
Well, that's interesting, though. So you've got a card payment system, obviously, for the customers to use to activate the machines, but you're using the data that's being gathered through that system to help you manage the business better.
Oh, absolutely. When we look back, when we were a coin-only store, it's really a high toll on the amount of time we spent on the store.
Right.
We were collecting coins, we were marking coins, we were painting quarters, another color for complaints, and it was just the amount of time we spent. It was just unbelievable. So we went through a transition. We went from coins to a hybrid model to card only, and we're really happy with the card only.
I think we've talked about a lot of things, but we haven't talked about this spot right behind us, which is the wash, dry, fold counter. So should we take a closer look at what's going on with wash, dry, fold? Let's take a look over here. All right, Gus, there's a lot of different ways to do the laundry business. We saw a lot of the self-service. Now this is a different experience you can offer to customers. Drop-off laundry, fluff and fold, wash, dry, fold. It's called a lot of different things, but here we are behind your drop-off counter. So what can you tell us about this part of your business? Because it really is kind of a separate business in a sense that you're offering full service to the customers who want to come in and let you do the wash.
So we do. We offer drop-off service. We currently do not offer pickup and delivery yet.
Okay.
That's something.
It's a whole other business.
We look at it different business entities in a way. Self-service is one model with a set of processes. Drop-off is another business with complete different customer base, complete different expectations, and complete different services. If you think about it, the self-service customer, they're responsible for their clothing.
Right.
So you're really renting the machines to them. So from the liability perspective, you're just giving the machine to the customer, right? And making sure that the machine works as it should. But when you look at drop-off, it's a complete different entity. Why? Because now you will start seeing many times that these are customers in a different income level, right? With a different type of expectations, and you need to really serve to those customers.
So we see some of the bundles back here. And you mentioned having a point of sale system, and I imagine that's not only tracking customers, tracking orders, and producing the tickets to make sure that we don't lose any socks, right? The last thing we want to do is lose anyone's clothing.
Yes, anyone who's been in this business and is doing a drop-off, you're gonna run in the situation where something happened and you lost the bag, especially in the beginning. And obviously that's the bag that the customer had, that $300 shirt.
Right. Yeah, there's never anything cheap in the bag that gets lost.
And if something happens, we have traceability where we get the timestamp of when was the order washed, when was the order dry, and then we use the cameras using the timestamp to track exactly what happened.
So it's not just there for security and giving peace of mind, but also being able to track the business.
I think that's one of the most challenging aspects of the drop-off service.
You lose clothes, you lose customers, right? That's as simple as that. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the day-to-day. So what does your typical day look like managing these two laundromats?
We come to a store typically twice a week.
Okay.
And each time we come, we are at both stores. We spend anywhere between 4 to 6 hours, maybe 4 to 7 hours total, twice a week.
Okay.
That is the presence at the store. A lot of the day-to-day situations, we handle them over the phone, whether if there is a situation with an attendant that cannot come to work, getting a replacement, everything had to do with equipment. We have a mechanic who helps us with the repairs of the machine, which these type of machines have been really great as far as the reliability. And then it's a lot of time I spend really honestly in the computer.
Can you tell us a little bit more about hiring process, about compensation, kind of your approach to taking care of these important employees for the business?
We compensate above market, above the typical laundromat pace. We also give vacation time. We get tips to the POS, and at the end of the month, actually we distribute the tips. Credit to my wife, she's the one who manages the team, and I think she's really good at really paying attention at the attendant needs. Right? She really takes care of them like a family. I think it's a key factor.
I think it's always a challenge is how do you make the laundromat a good place to work? So when you took over the store, remind us about what kind of equipment updates or replacements you had to make. So I imagine some of the machines had to go.
Actually, in this case, no.
Okay.
Because this store was actually completely retooled in 2016.
Okay.
And we acquired in 2021. This store was a card-only store, but it used one of those chip cards that are extremely expensive, meaning that every time a customer will come and pull a card out of the VTM, we will be losing money. That was a key driver to change the payment system.
So the main reinvestment you made equipment-wise was not washers and dryers, but it was in the technology and the payment system to help you better manage the business. And let's say you have a machine breakdown out here on the floor today. What is the process that you go through to make sure that those repairs are getting made on a timely basis?
We have a group chat on WhatsApp where the attendants, as soon as there is a machine out of order, it goes into the WhatsApp group. And actually, our mechanic is part of that group.
This mechanic you've referenced, is that an employee of yours or an independent contractor?
It's an independent contractor.
Okay. Circle back and talk about your vend price strategy. We saw a little bit of that as we walked around and saw the machines. And why don't you kind of just open up on your vend price strategy and how you approach pricing the machines and getting what you need to cover your bills, but also make sure that you're keeping it affordable for customers. That's always a little bit of a balance that you have to.
There are some owners that look at, hey, these are my bills, I want a certain profit margin, that's my price.
Okay.
Right? We look at the competition, our tier to be higher than the competitors, meaning that we're fully air conditioned, we have free Wi-Fi, the store is always clean, it's fully attended, we offer drop-off service. When we compare a store, for example, to a store that is open, that has no AC, well, it's natural that we're going to command a higher price. Every time we increase prices, negative reaction has been, you can count with the fingers of your hand. It's really about the experience that customers have in an environment. That's why they come to us, not because of the price.
Yeah, I mean, people ask a lot about a cost per square foot, let's say, and I think it's better to look at it as an expense ratio. Like, is it 20% of your gross? Then you could probably you could deal with that. But if it's 30% of your gross, that's too much, and maybe 10 or 15% is going to be too good to be true.
Yeah, when you look at the list, everything, you got to look at the location.
Right.
Because if your rent is high, you can work in the top line, right, to actually adjust the expense ratio. You cannot change the location.
Right.
And if you have a store that is not in a main, very dense street or highway or what have you, that has a lot of traffic, you're always going against the current. You're always fighting to pull customers in, while if you are in, if you have a very good exposure, it just happens naturally.
Location is number one, and I'm looking out the window here and just seeing cars after cars after cars go by, and all the parking that you have. And so, like you said, that's one thing you can definitely rely on. What would be some of your advice about funding that startup, that first time into the business?
I think that I could go to some of the financial institutions that are familiar with the industry.
Right.
Dealing with a financial institution that knows the business, it helps a lot.
So I want to talk about some of these early lessons learned. What were some of those either mistakes you learned from or things you do differently, or what are some of the kind of the learning curve from the first store and then coming to acquiring the second one?
I would just tell them, go to card only.
Okay.
Today, if I would open another store, I would go card only, eyes closed. And when we transitioned from hybrid to card only, we were really, really concerned of the customers. The transition was really good.
And it matches with your desired management style, which was to try to come twice a week.
Yes.
Right, which that requires using some of that additional technology.
Absolutely.
This is where we get a little more philosophical. We start to look out 5 or 10 years. So what is your outlook for the next 5 to 10 years in the business?
It's really growing the two stores that we have to keep on growing them. We think that there are opportunities for expansion. A third store, fourth store, maybe if the opportunity presents. It's not a goal itself, but I keep on improving the process. It's a never-ending task. Keep on improving.
I don't know anyone who's done it perfectly, right? It's always a process.
There is always opportunity. It also is great to go to conference like the one the CLA sponsor, where every time I've gone to a conference, you learn sometimes a little bit that justify itself. Oh my God!
And one idea that pays for your trip.
Always, at least one. How come I didn't know that? How come I did not know that?
Really appreciate you being a member and coming to an events, because you're taking advantage of the things that we offer and connecting laundromat owners to be able to learn from each other. And you have experiences that you can help other people with, and other people have experiences that will be helpful to you. So we appreciate that very much. Let's talk a little bit about marketing and kind of what your approach is. We have members that sort of let the location do the talking. We have other members that do very elaborate marketing plans. Where do you fall in that mix of marketing the store?
I think that location and signage on its own, it does a lot of the heavy lifting. Google reviews. We mainly drive marketing. In the coming month, we're going to be expanding to other avenues, augmenting Google with Facebook and Instagram.
Well, honestly, Gus, when we were planning this trip to come look at laundromats in this area, I Googled your store and saw these. I saw a bunch of great reviews, and that got me that much more excited about coming to see you. So what's your approach in terms of soliciting, or do you solicit these better reviews or responding to reviews, and just how important Google is? How do you, maybe that's some of that office time that you spend.
So first is when we see a customer that is pleased, the attendants, go and say, hey, are you happy with your experience, right? We have a QR code with the NFC tag. We can actually just tap the phone and let the experience of leaving a review fairly easy. So we're kind of proactive, proactive look ahead when there is a customer that is pleased, customer happy, actually go and say, hey, if you're happy, would you mind leaving a review? Really simple.
Nothing wrong with asking for a good review if they've had a good experience.
It's kind of organic, and obviously, when the door is always open, meaning sometimes we have negative reviews. You have negative reviews, and we reply to them. When there is a negative review, we try to find out, what happened, right? What happened, and typically, the negative reviews where you can learn the most. Where if you, especially like us, we are not at the store all the time, you can learn things that might be happening that you are not aware of.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of how our industry is viewed these days. You've been in the business a while. We know there's a lot of interest in social media and people talking about the industry. What do you think are some myths or misconceptions about the business that stand out to you, or things that you like to dispel for the people watching?
People believing that this is an investment, that you're going to put money up front or you're going to get a loan, you build the store, and you're going to make money left and right. I would say not being aware of the things that can happen. A laundromat that you're not running well, it can be your worst nightmare.
And you're drawing a distinction between an investment, which sort of connotes passive approach, versus running it like a business, which requires an active management of it, not a ton of hours necessarily, depending on how you have it set up, but that is an important distinction. So any other sort of myths or misconceptions that come to your mind? I think you touched on the couple of the biggest ones.
I'm not a big believer in absentee owners. Right? Maybe because I don't have the recipe. In my mind, absentee owner is absentee income.
But you've optimized your time, right? So you're not spending an incredible amount of time on this, but spending it where it needs to be.
Well, we're keeping an eye. We're keeping an eye.
We've covered a lot of ground here. You've got a lot of great information to share. If you had to boil down to the last 2 or 3 pieces of advice to give to someone who's thinking about getting into the industry or running their laundromat better, what are the first couple things that come to mind?
Get educated in the industry. Make sure you have a good support system. Like in my case, it's my family.
Right.
The driving force on the day-to-day is my wife, who does a great job on running the business on the daily basis. And number 3 is, at some point, don't be afraid. Once you get your support system, once you know what you want to get, your funding strategy, push the button.
Push the button and get started. If you're learning as much as I am from Gus this afternoon, please like or subscribe and keep these videos coming right to you. Okay, learned a lot today. If you want to learn more about getting into the laundromat business or how to become a better laundromat owner yourself, follow us at CLA, the Laundry Association. All the information, laundryassociation.org. We'll see you next time.